Hello, welcome back to the series entitled Karma, Destiny and Choice. Today we will be specifically looking at the subject of the interface between karma and choice. The subject of the law of karma has been of endless fascination to most of us watching this show. And so today I have in the studio with me Sister Denise, who will be looking at how we manage the interplay between these two subjects. Sister Denise, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back in the studio with us. So, Sister Denise, there are many spiritual seekers out there, people who are engaging or dabbling, shall I say, with spirituality, with a sense of not just looking at the here and now, but the bigger picture. And what they want to know is, as far as my karma is concerned, which way do I go? As far as my choices are concerned, which way do I go? Now, how does one know where to turn when you are at a four-way crossing?
It's really impossible to know. People want to know in advance. You can't know in advance. The game of life is not like that. The game of life is the moment you have in your hands is the present moment. So you have to be present for it. A very good practice is to not get caught up in past, concerns about the future, memories about the past, what if, this kind of thing. Because when you're really present in the present, and you're aware of the energies that are playing right here, right now, you're in a much better position to do the right thing at the right time, And so it's very good practice to just be here right now in the present moment and just take a risk, not just a stupid risk, a calculated risk, bearing in mind where I am, what I am, what's going on now, what is the best thing. And you have to be fast, because the present moment is only for 1 second. Sometimes it feels quite expanded. And when you're being very focused on being in the present, at the present moment, you can expand it. And you can do the right thing at the right time. Sometimes you experience circumstances sort of open up doors for you, and it just allows you the leisure and the time and the space to feel what's the right thing and then just do the right thing. And you can call it choice, but also you could say that it is a karma to make this decision to be present at the present moment. And the fruit of that karma is time is on your side. It's also a very great fruit to have. Everybody wants time on their side. People so often say, oh, I don't have time, I don't have time. Or people waste time. Many people do things that are meaningless, trivial, computer games, whatever, just to deal with their anxiety or whatever. It is sensible to find something that calms you down when you are anxious.
Many of us have the habit of consulting loved ones when we make a decision. In the context of this topic, is that a good thing or not?
Well, you may consult loved ones, but you may consult wise ones. I think there's a difference.
Not everyone you love is wise.
That's right.
I see where you're going with this. Okay.
If you detect somebody as wise and you cultivate a friendship with them, that's a very good investment. Because you open yourself up to them, they know you, you know them, and they understand the trend of your life, your karma, this and that, and they can actually point you in a good direction. Or they may also be able to help you to interpret what's going on. What's the deeper meaning behind what's going on? And then you can make a good decision because you understand that deeper meaning. When you have to make a decision, very often it's an ethical dilemma. If I do this, there will be good things, there will be bad things. If I don't do it, there will be consequences. If I do the opposite, there will be consequences. So we have to be able to calculate the consequences. It is said in the spiritual practice of Raj Yoga, understand the 3 aspects of time.
What does that mean?
The 3 aspects of time means what caused overall the situation to arise the way it is right now. That's the past. The present is what are the energies going on around it. And the future is where it's going. And whatever you do with it will determine the angle of the trajectory of your karma. If you understand these things, you can actually distance yourself a bit and calculate. You can look at different alternative scenarios, which are all quite realistic. It's not that you can have an absolute guarantee and know, but you can have a pretty good idea because you understand the way things work. Wisdom is much more valuable than other kinds of success. You know, some people want to look good, some people want to create an impression, but with wisdom, I think you want to arrive at the destination that is really where you want to go ultimately.
When people look at their own karma, for the vast majority of souls, there's quite a bit of sorrow there. How does one know that the choice that you're making is not making your karmic burden worse?
It's a calculation. So your karmic burden will get worse if you react to or react against the pain that's coming to you.
Yeah, this is where a lot of us fall short, Sister Denise. We literally jump out of the frying pan into the fire. We make decisions because we're emotional and because you're reacting to some negative energy in your life. We do that on a daily basis.
Yeah,
So,
well, it is pain. You see, people have an antagonistic relationship with pain. And pain is a very important messenger. And we need to, I think, change our relationship with pain. We need to embrace it. We need to understand that it's come to tell us something very important, that the only way it can get our attention is by giving us a bit of pain. Pain teaches us endurance. If you have pain, it's anyway a consequence of some karmic mistake. And if you don't want to endure the pain, then you will increase the debt.
whoa, pause for reaction. Say that again.
If you don't want to endure the pain, then you will increase it. Because you will react to it.
How do you endure the pain?
There are practices for that. And before you engage in such a practice, the first thing is to have a relationship with pain that's very positive. I mean, there are many kinds of pain that come up. Loss, betrayal, your dignity is out of the window, you lose face, many, many different kinds of things, including physical pain, emotional pain, financial pain, social pain, all the different pains. There is a power that we learn about in Raj Yoga, which is called the power of accommodation. And you have to stretch yourself so that you can accommodate a big, like a ball of fire that's burning inside you, giving you pain. You've got to be able to accommodate it so that you can endure that pain, which arises, persists for a while, then it subsides. But if you can't endure it for a little bit of time, you will put yourself into big trouble. But if you practice to endure increasing amounts of time, it pays off very well. You know, there are certain kinds of sports, or if in sport somebody wants to really excel, become an Olympic athlete or whatever, they have to endure all sorts of things. To become skillful, you have to practice, you have to go through stuff, you have to maybe do a lot of things repeatedly in order to get the skill. And it will test your patience, it will test your endurance, but it will make you a better person.
So life is also a game.
It's a game, and it's a teacher, and it's for your benefit. But the only thing is, you need to be able to read it in such a way that you take benefit. Some people read it all wrong, and they just don't get it. What to do? We're trying through these programs to get people to be able to see the side of it that is to their advantage.
I think that what you just said is a subject of another episode entirely. So I want to put a pause on that aspect. But what I want to ask you now, you said to have a relationship with pain, which I find also bizarre, because it's just such a shocking thing to hear. Because, Sister Denise, the natural human reaction is pain, run, okay, or avoid, or medicate, or numb with a drug of your choice, or some brown liquid of your choice. But what you're saying is face it head on.
Yes.
And ask what the message is.
Yes. You know, when people avoid pain, or they take drugs or medication or whatever, they become weaker and weaker and weaker. And this is what addiction is. Inability to manage your pain.
Okay, it'll take me a while to recover from that one. So you have your karmic burden, and there are choices that you make. The question that comes to mind is, how do I trust myself to make the right choice when my karma has brought me to this point where I consider my life to be a mess, or perhaps not a complete mess? Every decision I made is perhaps wrong, or brought negative consequences, or brought the wrong people into my life. As a human being, you start to question yourself. You think, I made this decision at the time that seemed right, but hell unfolded, and what do I do now? How do you learn to make a choice that's to your karmic advantage?
You mentioned that you made a decision and hell took place, and then you understood that that means it was a bad decision, but not necessarily.
How so?
You know, sometimes you have to make a decision which is going to make all hell break loose, because unless all hell breaks loose, you're not going to deal with all that hell that breaks loose. This is what's needed.
Okay, so even if there's a disaster that's unfolding, financial disaster, physical pain disaster, end of relationship disaster, end of job disaster, emotional problem, mental problem, there's benefit in all of that?
Yeah, there is. The thing is, why I mentioned earlier how useful it is to have wise people in your friend circle, and you consult with them. They can give you an angle of vision on that situation, where looking at it from the angle which says all hell is breaking loose, therefore I must have made a bad decision, you can just as easily say, I took a risk. I needed to pop this bubble because it's going nowhere. I popped the bubble, all hell broke loose, because I needed to clear the decks so that I can get back on track.
So the question I have is, moving forward, ensuring that the decisions that you make is in your best interest. How does one do that?
You do your best. Sometimes you will make a decision and the consequences don't look good at the time, but down the line it ends up as that was a very good thing you had to do and that you did at that time, but the good consequences came later. This we have to understand. This is one of the laws of karma, is that there is an immediate reaction or consequence, mid-term, and then long-term. So sometimes you have to be so much having faith in your integrity and the intelligence of your decisions, and then the long-term consequence demonstrates to you that, yeah, you stayed in your self-respect, you maintained your dignity, you did something risky, a lot of people reacted badly to it, but eventually they had to start respecting you, that what you did was exactly the right thing, even if they didn't really like it.
Yeah, I can see that.
So you have to be far-sighted.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you. By far-sighted, you mean always looking at the bigger picture?
Looking at the bigger picture, but also for myself. You know, I always try to be absolutely as true as possible to myself in the context of my understanding of spiritual laws and wisdom, and then you make a decision according to that. The rest of the world doesn't function like that. So when you act like this, they're going to react quite negatively. It means that when you're doing this sort of thing in this sort of way, you're deferring the consequences of karma. They will come eventually, but we have to go through all this drama of other people thinking in a different way before you get to that. Once you've been through that a few times, you begin to realize there's a law in place here, and you get to have faith in it. Being true to yourself and true to your principles becomes a power that you have.
So, Sister Denise, how does one, in the context of karma and choice, manage one's karmic debt? Because it's always on your shoulders, is it not? There's not a single person that's born that does not carry a karmic burden.
This is true. There are karmic debts, and they come up from time to time for payment. They come up, it seems, in this pairs of opposites of attraction and repulsion. So in order for you to settle an account, you have to get pulled into it. Therefore, there's an energy of attraction that pulls you into the situation. And when you're good and tied up, it turns and becomes repulsion, and you just want to be out of that situation, but you can't because you're tied up. And then you have to pay a price to come out of it. This is how karmic debts get settled. So, in order to minimize the extremes of that, you have to understand that if there's a big attraction, wave a red flag to yourself, that this attraction doesn't mean that it's an attraction. This means there's a karmic debt to settle, which means it's going to pull me in by the attraction until I can't get out of it, and then it's going to give me hell. And then that way I pay for it. So when you see an attraction, you have to be very, very judicious at each and every step, that you don't get fooled by it, because it's a delusion, it's an illusion, it's a trap. You have to pay your debt, no doubt, but keep it to the minimum. If you get trapped and pulled in and reactive and so on, you intensify and increase the debt a great deal, and then you pay much more expensively. But if you go in carefully and make sure that at every step you're following the principles of spirituality, then there will be some pain, but not as much as if you go against the principles of spirituality, because they are protective energies that protect you from getting into big trouble in the circumstances of the settlement of karma. The days we're living in are days of settlement of karma. And people speak about the time of reckoning, but you can also look at it that my karma has to be settled because I have to become free. So there's lots and lots of things going to be happening that I have to pay. And don't grudge having to pay. Pay. Because if you grudge, your debt will increase.
Sorry, I'm still recovering from that. How does one pay with dignity? Because most of us, when we have to open our wallet and pay for anything, we wince, if not physically, then mentally. Now, karmically, if you have to open your internal wallet and pay, we're like, what? Is this what this costs? Most of us aren't aware that we are paying at right now. In this relationship, in this relationship, in this situation, I'm paying. We're not aware. So how does one become aware, and how does one pay with dignity?
I think one of the purposes of us doing this show and really opening up the whole subject of karma and all its different nuances and attributes is to get people to be aware of how complex a web it is, and that there are laws at work which are impossible to avoid. You have to work with it, not against it, number one. The other thing is, sticking to your principles of spirituality may be painful because you have to deny yourself certain small pleasures that you would otherwise indulge in. But this keeps you in your position of self-honor. Because if you move aside from your principles, everything will look nice for a little bit, and then it'll come and hit you in the face and really make you look bad. So then you lose all your dignity like that. Knowing the principles of spirituality, adhering to a way of life which is honorable and pure, it puts you in the best possible situation in regard to those things. And then you can have your dignity. But you will lose your ego.
Oh, you had to say that at the end of the episode, didn't you?
Well,
okay. Hold on. We will have to dedicate an entire episode to ego and karma. But we're about to come to the end of this episode. And there are people watching you right now who have numerous questions. I know I do. And so, given that we're talking about karma and choice today, what advice do you have for the listener as far as the best way forward is?
Make very clear to yourself what your principles are, principles of life, and do not deviate from them, because your karmic account essentially comes from your own weakness. And your weakness comes from when you go against your own conscience or your own principles. And so if you can make this strong so that you don't go against it, it may cost you something, but it won't cost you nearly as much as if you do go against it. Try to bring wise people into your circle of friends, if you can find any. There are a few.
There are a few, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your own dignity and your own self-honor needs to have a higher position in your esteem than satisfaction of your desires and cravings. Because they're deceptive.
Yes. So, spirituality is the answer, isn't it?
Well, for me, it gives you this dimension that people don't have. People are used to dealing with the world in a very worldly way without taking into consideration these invisible, subtle laws that are no less real than the laws of physics.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we should end there, although this feels like a cliffhanger of sorts. But to those of you who are listening, we are obviously going to take a lot of the subjects that Sister Denise raised today in a different conversation and up in a different episode. So the conversation does not end here. I'm glad you joined us today because, as you realized, the subject of karma is a very vast one. And I think you should ask yourself the question at home, audience, is how important is it to me to keep my karmic burden as light as possible? Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your ear. I hope to see you again soon. Take care and goodbye.